All right. Good morning, everyone. So before we get into the topic that we'll go over today, I just wanted to go through the wiki site again. We've made some updates to it. First of all, as this is the construction office hours, we're going to go through the construction page, and we updated some of the information for our project closeout resources. So we added a few uh, resources and posts that were on the wiki site, but not perhaps in this section. So just wanted to highlight the close-up portion. We added a couple of other things, and then at the very bottom, we have a what's new portion of the construction section. So, please feel free to always look at number one, two options, the newsletter, right? The newsletter will say all the new things to the wiki site, all the best practices, all the new updates to Headlight, ACC, Paul Hub, EDOT, all of our systems that we're utilizing every day. But this will give you what's the latest post, and it's going to be on the construction page at the very bottom. So as you can see, here's the training that we went over last week, and this training also will go on the wiki site after this is done. Now, to get into the training for today, mainly what we'll be talking about here is creating labels for new headlight projects. And this doesn't necessarily need to just be new headlight projects, as I know we're going through projects already and projects that are already in active construction. So what we're going to do is we're going to first show you how to best upload some of these labels at the beginning of the project when it's at the project creation step, and then also how to edit some of these labels on your actual project during active construction. And so as I described in the meeting invite, why we think that this is important is because as we went through the Kakula last year, and we're going to go through here shortly this year, we noticed on a lot of diaries that some of the labels, or often labels, were duplicated. So for example, contractors, you have you label them when it comes to laborers, when it comes to the work that they did, when it comes to a pay item, it all ties together, right? And if there are duplicates of contractors, if there are duplicates of labor and personnel, then it's hard to really get accurate information. What I've seen sometimes on projects is, there's a label for a laborer, and um, it's one letter off, or it's perhaps duplicated. And then when you go and you're looking through your certified payrolls, you don't want to have to manually always go through the entire diary. You want to be able to filter for a particular person, filter for a particular contractor, right? So that you don't have to go and sift through all of it. So setting all this stuff up beforehand, or previous to the inspector or the field engineer who are out in the field, and I'll show you what a lot of times people end up doing, but doing things proactively at the beginning of the project, or before we start creating diaries, and even whilst we're in the construction phase, and we just continue to set this up, it'll make lives of our inspectors and also field engineers and people who are creating diaries out in the field a lot easier. So that's the preface why we're doing this. Just give you a better picture. This is not something that's necessarily new. This is something that we talked about previously in some other diaries best practices when it comes to some of the headlight training that we already have on the wiki site under the construction underneath Headlight. Have all the various resources when it comes to project creation, request, progress payment, tutorials here. And then even furthermore, we have diary best practices, and these are some of the trainings that we've created years ago, right? Now we're just updating a portion of that. And so essentially what we're going to do is we're going to create some labels for pay items, contractors, personnel, equipment. And the first thing I wanted to go through is, so this is what you'll see when you go to the project request form. We linked the form here. So this form, obviously we went through it a couple months ago. Headlight updated their form, updated this template to include new fields. So if I zoom in here, obviously we went through this a couple months ago when it comes to contract number, pay item description. There was a section that Headlight added over here. And the reason for this is because now the Headlight new progress payment is working on providing a quote unquote fiscal table where it kind of combines the summary and recap table together. And in order to have all of that in a consistent manner, even though we trained on it 2 months ago, now they've added this portion, and I want to highlight columns G and H. So columns G and H have been separated out. Previously, it was just one column where you were able to enter in just a free field where it says 21 and then dash safety. But now on federal projects, in order for your fiscal table or your summary recap table to work properly in the progress payment, you'll need to separate them out. So for example, on a federal project, you have type code 21, and then you have the description. You'll look through here and it'll be safety, or 08, and then it'll be new bridge. So this just keeps it clean on the back end Headlight system. And this will allow you to have that summary / recap table on your progress statement, and it accurately distribute the funding type codes and the funding distribution. So wanted to highlight this in this training because obviously it ties into pay. This is a required field in the Headlight project intake form. What we notice is a lot of projects, they enter in this project intake form and then they have later, that's not necessarily extra work, but then forget to add pay items here, forget to change the type codes, and then you got to go back later on. Just wanted to highlight the importance of getting those funding type codes in here, because right now what we're going through, or what Headlight's going through currently on a lot of the projects, is this information wasn't entered or it's not matching up to the type code. So we're having to reach out to project teams and get that information, kind of backfill it, and then moving forward with presenting those tables on the progress payment. So please be sure for all new projects that we're entering this information here moving forward. So that describes that here, essentially what I went through. And so that's more of a refresher. But now let's get into the contractors. So contractor Excel import. So at the project intake level, you have two options. You have adding your pay items, you have contractors, and you can add tags, right? Tags don't necessarily have a Excel import template, but contractors do. So at the beginning of the projects, obviously need to, this table is not required on the intake form. So you can add contractors at a later date through Headlight projects portal, which I will show you in a bit. So if you're already on an active project and you need to be adding your contractors, then obviously we'll show you how to do that. But this can also be done at the project intake level. So it'll have that Excel import sheet where you have contract number, which is similar to the pay items. And then obviously for this project, it's going to be under the same contract number. And then you have the contractor name. And then what's important is DBE as well. So marking either DBE or not. But the main thing is this column B, because this column B is what Headlight will pull and what will show up on your diaries when your inspector goes to select the tag. And Vardy sort of went over the importance of having your contractor tag in Headlight already. This will allow you to, this will allow your inspectors, this will allow your field team to not have duplicate contractors. Again, what I've been seeing is a lot of times what people do is they create an observation. Right, I'm just going to create a narrative, if it'll allow me to. So what happens, well, you'll create a narrative, and then if you have it already pre-selected, they'll just be able to come here, they'll be able to type it. So they'll be able to type they'll be able to click it. But what a lot of people end up doing is they just end up typing it in like this every time and then adding correct label. And then the more you do this, the more you create duplicates for the tags. And then you run the risk of having typos, so that when I go back later and I can go search for labels, you know, I'm not searching for all of the actual ACME construction. I'm searching for the ones that we've just created, and you keep on creating tags over and over again, right? So again, this goes for all the labels, but right now we're talking about contractors. And obviously, when it comes to payments, you have pay items, right? And these pay items are tied to the contractor as well. So this one's locked out here, but if I go in here and I add a pay item, and I want to tag the contractor, then I have it here instead of having to go back in, type my name again. That's going to say, do I want to create a label? This creates duplicates. And this is not creating clean data for you to go back, filter, go back. And when people are going back in, looking at these diaries, reviewing them, they need to filter, obviously progress payment has been a big thing, right? So when, we go back and as an engineer, we're reading through our inspector's diaries, field engineer's diaries, and, we're going through all of what happened for that month when we're doing payments. And it makes it 10 times easier when you're able to filter for contractors, filter for pay items as you're looking through your drawings, as you're looking through all of the project documentation to be able to filter for correct pay items and correct contractors, correct labor, correct equipment, all of that stuff. It makes it 10 times easier if we have these labels pre-selected for your inspector, and so that they select them instead of creating the duplicates every single time. So this goes for pay items, labor, equipment, and again, this is for contractor. But now as we get into personnel and equipment, the same concept applies. So again, just a reminder, this is Fieldbook, right? This is our main diary, this is where change orders, this is where pay applications, this is where we do our, reports, our daily diary reports. Most of the field documentation is here in Fieldbook. And so if you look at the top left-hand corner of your screen, you see here, this says Fieldbook, and this is going to be the main portal. But now, okay, if we want to go and add labels, add pre-select labels, I know I went over this with a few or some people separately about projects, and now this is good because we'll display this out to everybody. But if you go to the top right-hand corner and you click on your name, and then you go to project, this will take you to a different application or portal, whatever you want to call it, within Headlight system. So there's profile, right? And then there's project. Your profile obviously will take you to where your profile information is stored. This is where you can change your password. This is where you can change your Headlight profile. Now, this project one is what I want to talk about today. And don't worry about this notification at the top right-hand corner. I have a lot of permission in Headlight, yet I still get this. I still get this notification every time. So don't be alarmed with this. I know when I tell people to go into project that a lot of people say, I don't have this permission, and keeps on telling me I don't have permission, but this is just a bug, and don't worry about it. What I want you to do is I want you to make sure that you're toggled to the correct project. Now, this is a test project. I want to make sure that, so all the projects that you have access to should be listed here. If you don't have access to a particular project in here, this should match Fieldbook, but notice this changes to project, and then you'll still have the same project list. If you're not added to a particular project, then please reach out to us. We'll be able to help you with that. But make sure you're selected the correct project, the one that you want to add the labels for, and go down to labels. Okay. And this is where you're able to see all the pre-select labels that you have on your project. Right? Notice a couple things. Notice that this is a test project, so it has a bunch of funny names. So please don't mind that. But the Curious George. But anyway, so what's important about this is you're able to add labels. Now these are all the pre-select ones, and notice that the tag that I set. Let's go back to here. Let's see. Here's personnel. So there's tags, right? These are tags that are just not, so just random tags that are not labeled as personnel, a pay item, equipment, or contractor. These are tags that you can create, customized tags that don't have to do with all of that don't necessarily fall into the category of personnel, labor, or sorry, personnel, equipment, contractor, and pay item. But if you want to be able to filter by other things like non-working days or non-participating or any other extra tag that you want to be able to filter maybe later on or have your inspectors filter for. You can obviously just create a tag and then when you go back to your diaries, you can tag certain things. But when I'm going through personnel, this is the personnel that I want to have added at the beginning of the project. Or even if I'm in the middle of the project, I want to add them here so that I don't have to go and add my name every single time or add somebody's name every single time. Now, this may work. Obviously, sometimes you have people who come on site that are not regulars, so they'll only come once here in a while. So that's when you can utilize and type it in for the one day. But if you have people that are constantly on site, which is most of the people in most cases, then you want to have this, you want to be proactive and you want to set this early. Avoid recreating tags, recreating all of the filters and tags that may get duplicated, that may have a typo in them. Okay. Notice even here, there's two, or well, there's two. This may be a typo, I'm not sure, but we want to be sure that again, there's two things you can do. You can add or you can remove. So if I see a typo here and I want to remove it, that your inspectors have been utilizing a duplicate, then you can come to this portal and you can remove it. So this is personnel. There's a lot of personnel right here, and then there's the line item. So obviously you'll see this when after your project has been created and all of the imported pay items should be here. You can also add pay items here, but I caution against that. The reason is because you cannot add funding or type codes to it. So that's why you want to, when you're adding, you don't want to add pay items to here because you won't be able to get the type code. You won't be able to get authorized quantity. You have to do that through an official change order, right? So that's what prevents people from adding pay items when you don't have an official change, right? It won't have the authorized quantity. It won't have the funding type code. It won't have all the other, parts of the pay item. All it will have is a number and a name, which you can tag to a diary, but that's it. So anyway, equipment as well. So as you can see at the bottom here, equipment and then contractor. Notice that the one that I created from the diary itself, it will show up here. So you can create it from typing it in. But the problem that we've been seeing is that people create it once, type it out, think that it's not there again, and then continue to type it. That's how we end up with all these duplicates, right? So once we create it in the diary, want to make sure that we just select the tag or select the contractor again. And this is kind of a neat thing. So if you go to, let's say, personnel, or well, you can tag in equipment. So you can do this for all of it, but for equipment, contractor, I'm gonna go in here and I can tag it to some of the other contractors tied together. But what I think would be more important, let's see, setting names. It looks like it's only for this associate label contractor. So again, if you have tags, if you have other labels that you wanted to associate with a particular contractor, then that's where we'll be able to, come here and tie them together. But anyway, this is where you're able to see all the labels on your project, be able to add and remove them. And this will avoid duplicates. Like I said before, you can also add these labels or tags directly from Fieldbook. So again, if I want to get back to Fieldbook from here, all I have to do is go to the top left-hand corner of my screen and then navigate from project, go to Fieldbook. I go back to Fieldbook and I can see all the tags and all the diaries that we've created thus far and be able to tag it. Again, well, is there any questions thus far?
Art, I just blinked.
Yes.
Can you do that again? Go back to the project on the tab where the labels were, and then go back to
Absolutely.
Fieldbook.
Absolutely. So
Move
if you
too
go to the
quickly.
top right, no, sorry about that. Okay, so top right, go to your name and then go to projects, right? And then if I want to go back again, ignore this message at the top right. Top left, you see project. Now this little, if I hover over this notebook or Fieldbook, then I'll be able to navigate back to Fieldbook. And this will take me to settings. Don't worry about this bridge management. But if I go to Fieldbook, this is where I can navigate from project to Fieldbook. And it doesn't show the project here, but yeah, obviously, as I showed you before, go to your name, go to project. Just go back and forth from these two sections here.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. So I just wanted to remind everybody the importance of note. So now we have these tags created. But as you know, we're going through COCOAs, and as we're looking at diaries, and as somebody who has, process payments, and somebody who has had to go through months and months of diaries to go and filter through observations to see particular things and go look back for things that happen out in the field. What makes it easier for us when we're reviewing things is when you're out in the field, and it may seem like a chore now, but ultimately, when we're creating these project diary observations, we want to be sure that we're being as detailed as possible. So if we upload an image here, we don't want to just leave this image here without a description or without an explanation through tags. Because if we just leave an image here, obviously that helps to a certain extent. But what the best practice is, and we go through this in detail in our workable day best practice guides, but we want to be sure, and this will help out your engineers, help out you yourself when you're going back and taking a look at the diaries, is if you're uploading an image, or even if it's not an image, even if you're uploading a safety observation, a narrative, a weather, traffic control observation, perhaps a video, it helps, it really helps to have these tags here and to go back and describe what is in that image, right? And tie it to tags that we can filter for later back on. This filter tool is something that at the beginning I wasn't really using all the time, but it helps tremendously when you're going through months and months of diaries, when you're looking at a claim, when you're looking at a progress payment and you're going back to verify quantities, and it helps tremendously when you're able to filter for these labels, when you're able to filter for a particular observation type, when you're able to filter for an inspector or a personnel on your project, and obviously dates when you're looking for a particular time period, or you can search for the actual name of the pay item, right? So, well, this is under spreadsheets, but if I wanted to do that, I could come here. So when reviewing, this helps tremendously. But going back to the journal, and this applies to spreadsheets too. Want to be sure that a lot of times what we're seeing is tagging pay items, quantities are at 0. That doesn't necessarily help. That doesn't necessarily help unless it's a lump sum item when we're explaining that in the notes here what happened. But what we want to do for particular pay items, want to tag the pay item, want to tag the quantity. Obviously, the unit will auto-populate and the authorized quantity will auto-populate if you filled out the pay item export sheet properly and add any additional notes. You're able to add the contractor here. Obviously, add the prime contractor, subcontractor. That helps when looking through contractor to see who actually did the work. And then when we're tying back to pay items and a journal, so if we see a pay item and you noted a 12 linear feet of work by this contractor, if I filter for that particular contractor, and I leave that label here and I go back to journal, I can go back and see, hey, and if I want to filter for a particular date, then I can go back to journal and say, okay, let's see the images for the work that they actually did during this time period. And if I see the images and we're tying, and if we have that contractor tag here, then I can just switch back and forth from pay item to journal, and I can see all of the specific work that they did. If I didn't have this label, then I would have to go through again and X out this. And this is the one I created today, but I have to go through all of these diaries that have nothing to do with that particular contractor and scroll down and find this is a test project, doesn't have many observations, but obviously, as you all know, on your project, you have thousands of observations. So to go through that without tagging is a chore, and it's just trying to create easier and more proactive ways of filtering, and it eliminates some of the time when you're reviewing your progress payment quantities. It'll take some of the manual time away looking through your diaries, and it just helps out in that process. So, is there any questions on that? I don't necessarily want to expend any more on all of this stuff. I think that we can all be more proactive in creating labels, and obviously, as we go through the COCO for this year, we'll spell that out on a project by project basis. I just wanted to provide this at the beginning of the year so that we can start the new year on the right foot and get our diaries more organized. So, gonna end the recording. Is that it?